This feels like a huge goalpost shift. Did he say profoundly unjust? I don't remember hearing that at all. I thought I heard, was the deportation unjust? If you want to walk back now to, from was it unjust to was it super unjust? And then once we prove it's super unjust, then are you going to say, well, was it super mega unjust? Like, yeah, you could probably win the argument, but that's shifting the goalpost. If you want to concede that the deportation was unjust and that we should facilitate his return, according to the Supreme Court order, then okay, what are we even here to argue about? Like, W. Pisco for getting a concession in 20 minutes? Let's watch this debate. Oh boy.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Culture War Debates Podcast Live. This is our first pilot. We got a live studio audience for everybody watching at home. We're going to be bringing them up. I encourage heckling, booing, and jeering, which is probably bad news for our friend Pisco. But it's going to be fun. But we do have some serious issues to debate. And the question of today is, was the deportation of Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia just or unjust? And should the Trump administration bring him back to this country? And with that being said, I would like to throw it first to the gentleman to my right. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Pisco. I'm a lawyer. I argue on the internet.
We're literally 3v1ing. Unless that other guy is not a conservative. Are we actually 3v1ing here? Pisco, what is happening?
And I think it's obvious that it was unjust. It was illegal. All right. One of the big problems that conservatives cite with immigration is the fact that it's illegal in the first place. Okay. So if you have a problem with illegal immigration on the basis of its illegality, surely you should have a problem with deporting people illegally, unless you think it was the right thing to do to break the law. Do you think it was the right thing to do to break the law? I'll ask the audience right now. Yeah. So that's just a collective. I want everyone to notice. You all said you're fine when Trump breaks the law. He admits that he broke the law, and you're cool with it. And they admit that it was against the law to do so. And they promised they're going to do it to U.S. citizens too. You think he's just joking? You think it won't affect you? They've already arrested U.S. citizens, for 10 days without due process. They're lying about where he was near the border. They've deported U.S. children who have cancer. So don't think this won't affect you. And notice what you all just did. You all just said, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's just for someone to be deported illegally. Deported illegally.
All right.
So basically, just to finish off, if you're willing to say that, you're willing to say that you want Trump to be a king, that you want him to be a tyrannical fascist. And I would ask you to look yourself in the mirror and really, take a hard look. Is that what you want this country to be?
All right.
For 24 hours, yes.
We also have,
For 24 hours, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice to see you all. I'm Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel at the Article 3 Project. So I think there are, three core reasons that the outcome here is substantively just. The first is that had the Trump administration gone through the normal process to lift the withholding of removal, this guy would have been removed 100% of the time for two core reasons. First, he was found to be a member of MS-13 in earlier court proceedings. Once that finding was found and upheld on appeal, he would be stopped from challenging that. Now that Trump has designated the guy as MS-13, to be a foreign terrorist organization, he's not eligible for withholding of removal anymore, so he'd simply have lost no matter what. And the second reason is that in the interim, between the time he got this withholding of removal and now, the 18th Street Gang, which supposedly threatened his mother's pupusa shop, a preposterous story from the outset, that 18th Street Gang is no longer effective in El Salvador, which was the basis for his supposed fear of persecution, which is why the withholding of removal was granted in the first place. So the outcome wouldn't have changed. This is what we would call, to analogize, harmless error. The second reason it's
Pintable brought this up too, the harmless error. If they could have deported him, if they could have appealed the withholding order and then deported him anyway, why didn't they appeal the withholding order? That feels like a super simple question. So that's the first one. And then the second one is that, why are we justifying taking illegal shortcuts if the shortcuts were illegal? Why are we justifying the president ignoring a withholding order when the whole point of a withholding order is to stop the president from deporting somebody, to withhold from deporting that person? And the president ignored it. He deported him anyway.
Substantially justice because the guy's a wife-beating MS-13 gangbanger. Yeah. And who exploited our laws for 14 years. And in fact, the more that comes out about the guy, you're realizing, just what kind of person he is, threatening his wife and children, telling them that, you can't leave me because I'll kill you. Funny thing, I was reading a book about MS-13, and a different MS-13 gangbanger did say the same thing about a girlfriend he was dating. There's this sort of an underlying entitlement. But substantively, just obviously a very bad dude, a human trafficker, the kind of person who drives people, from
also,
Texas
keep in mind that none of this was actually adjudicated, by the way. If you want to make, personal claims about it, that's fine. He was never adjudicated with any of this, all right? He was never found guilty in a court of law of this. It's funny that conservatives say, innocent until proven guilty, but then, they'll call Kilmar Abrego Garcia a sex trafficker, a human trafficker, even though he was never adjudicated with that. Yeah, I don't, if it's true that he did all of this, obviously no one wants him in the country. But the problem is that it's important to follow the process. And no administrative body, no judicial body agrees with this guy that this is just like a meaningless error that would have been gone through with anyway. The Supreme Court literally instructed this administration to facilitate his return. The Supreme Court that is like 90% there because of Donald Trump. So the idea that there's like some legal justification to deport him is horseshit. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any evidence that the Trump administration had any of this information when they deported him? I don't know.
Maryland who don't have any luggage, do you think those people have free will? No, those are captives. And, we can get more into that later.
And we will. There's one more man joining us tonight to make sure that there's a little bit of chaos and humor.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I like. Well, it's Primetime 99, and I just want to say, Pisco, you are very smart, but you're still a libtard. And, but no, I agree. I actually agree with you on this because listen, whether it was unjust or not, we got the outcome that we want. His big booty Latina is staying in the country. And we need to do this as, a lesson to these other gangbangers and Trinidad Aruga adjacent people that if you come to our
I'm glad also that Alex Stein is here to diverge everything and make sure that no one could get held to an answer. That's really nice. The fact that this guy is here to fuck up the entire conversation right from the get-go, that's going to be really fun.
And you bring your big booty Latina, we're gonna kick your ass out and keep her. So I think
Alex, the Latina in question is a U.S. citizen.
I know, but still, she's still a big booty Latina. I'm saying it doesn't matter.
I mean, if the goal is to protect the U.S. citizen Latina from the predations of the MS-13 gangbangers,
I'm saying protect even illegal or legal big booty Latinas. They carry the same weight in my eyes. So I guess not apparently to you. So I'm saying, yeah, she's a legal big booty Latina, but he learned his lesson. They don't get to go back to El Salvador or wherever you get kicked off to.
And that's exactly why Alex is here.
Yes.
But we are going to be bringing up members of the audience, people who have submitted who want to join this debate, and give you guys a chance to have your thoughts heard on this matter. But I suppose the question to kick it off, simply, to either of you who wants to start, was the deportation just or unjust?
It was unjust. It was illegal. Do you think that
those aren't synonyms?
Wait, so
those aren't.
I understand that, but in this context, do you think it was just for the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation? Yes or no?
I mean, in these circumstances, the outcome was just.
I'm asking for the deportation. If you think,
well, I mean, it was mistaken, so they conceded that it's a mistake, right?
So was it just to do a mistaken illegal deportation?
I mean,
so if it was a mistake, then why were we saying like, oh, it's a meaningless error, the outcome is good, the outcome was legal, it's not an affront to the legal system? When they're admitting that it was a mistake and that they shouldn't have done it, and then the Supreme Court is ruling him to facilitate his return, and then they're saying no. Why are we acting like this is a minor thing?
Actual substantive outcome here is a just outcome. It's like, I don't want the administration.
Whether the outcome was just or not, is the action, the mistaken, in your words, mistaken illegal deportation just or not?
It's mildly unjust. I actually.
So you actually, to be clear, you actually agree that it was unjust. To be clear, everyone here agrees it was unjust.
No.
Well, okay. So Tim, do you think that the deportation was just to do an illegal action?
See, what you're doing right there is that's not debating. To load the question with, I presume it was illegal first. Now answer.
Do you agree it was illegal?
When did you start beating your wife?
Well, do you agree it was illegal? What's loaded about that?
So the issue is it a crime to make a mistake?
Not a crime. Was it illegal? Was it illegal? Yes or no?
No.
9 justices on the Supreme Court unanimously, Will and I, both lawyers, will tell you it was illegal. Will, it was obviously illegal.
It was an illegal deportation.
It was an illegal deportation.
So hold on. You're saying that it was illegal because the Supreme Court said it was?
No.
It's emphatically the province and duty of the judicial.
It's illegal because there was a withholding order that was legally in place from an immigration judge, and the president ignored it. The presidential administration ignored it, and then the administration admitted that it was illegal. That's why they said it was an administrative error. Like, you wouldn't say, if they're saying, yeah, we deported this alleged human trafficker who's a part of MS-13, why would they call it an error if it wasn't illegal? Because they obviously agree with the outcome. They wouldn't say it's an error because, like, out of the goodness of their heart, like, we accidentally deported this person we wanted out of the country. They said it was an error because it was illegal.
I'm going to say with the lies.
Does the Alien Enemies Act supersede?
He wasn't sued under the Alien Enemies Act, or wasn't deported under the Alien Enemies Act.
Stephen Miller claims he was.
No, he absolutely wasn't. He's not a Venezuelan. The proclamation for the Alien Enemies Act only applies to Venezuelans.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Say again.
Does the Alien Enemies Act apply to El Salvador?
The proclamation issued by the president only to Trinidad members who are Venezuelans. By its terms, the proclamation by its terms, even assuming it were legal, would not apply to him.
Yeah, this is not an Alien Enemies Act question.
So the question is, do you agree it was illegal?
If the argument is the Supreme Court said it was illegal and that's your basis for it, then I agree with you, yes.
Okay. Do you agree with the president or the executive?
The thing is, everybody agrees it's illegal.
Like, just to be clear.
Tim Pool literally just said it wasn't illegal.
The issue is we're talking
already, 8 minutes in? Holy.
About the semantics of what it means to be illegal, right? So, is it illegal to smoke pot? Yes. Is it unjust? No. People can smoke pot.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking you first if it's illegal. Now you agree it is illegal, fair, right?
In the context of what so the first thing I was trying to do was understand your view and how you're viewing what illegal means. You're saying as a subject of law, as the Supreme Court has ruled it, we all agree the Supreme Court did in fact say it was illegal.
And that there's a law preventing him from doing it, and then he did it. That's what illegal means. There's no spin on what illegal could mean here.
Agreed. Okay, so if it's the case that you think that this deportation was illegal, do you think it was just for
Yes.
the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like I think it's just for someone to smoke pot.
Okay. So if they did the same thing to a U.S. citizen, though, obviously you think it's unjust.
Yes.
Okay. If they killed Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, would you think it's unjust?
Yes.
Why's that?
Killing people is one of the worst crimes, in fact.
Okay.
Obama killed 4 American citizens. We fact checked.
You thought that was wrong, right?
Absolutely.
So then why do so if it's the case that you thought that was wrong, wouldn't it be wrong, for example, to put Kilmar Abrego Garcia in prison for the rest of his life without an opportunity to like have a case?
No.
Okay,
So let me try this real quick. You're trying to equate, say, Barack Obama, right? He extrajudicially assassinated a 16-year-old kid without charge or trial. I mean, if a dude cracks a grandma over the head with a baseball bat and kills her, I say lock that guy up. If a guy accidentally runs a woman over, then we say that there could be negligent homicide. There's degrees of whether the crime is bad. Is it justice in some circumstances and not when a crime is
Well, he's not answering the question. The question that Pisco very specifically asked was, would it be good to lock this person up forever and not give them the ability to challenge that detention? I would hope the answer here is no. That's not just, but there also wasn't an answer there, so who knows?
crimes are solved in the same way.
I'm not alleging that it's a crime.
rise the same level of retaliation.
I'm not alleging that it's a crime. I'm saying it's illegal, and the Supreme Court found that. And right now, what we have, this is what the Trump cult does to you. This is what the Trump cult does to you.
the ad hominem?
So this is what it does to you. You are defending an illegal deportation of a human being who has the right to have his case heard. The basic essence of due process.
funny thing is he actually- I mean,
denied of anybody. It will be denied of you in the course of time.
No, it won't. He's not a citizen.
So if
And
you're
he was
deported,
previously adjudicated as an MS-13 gang
that's
member.
false. And you brought it
No,
too.
no, no.
There was a finding that he was an MS-13.
No, so
Absolutely.
You brought up collateral estoppel, didn't you?
Yeah. So he'll be stopped from challenging.
So of course not. So of course not. So this. So I know because
Why did this format? I know that this is the first episode. It needs to be worked out. This is dog shit. Having 3 people on stage dogpile Pisco and every member in the crowd is just so fucking stupid. Unless you're literally just trying to take people on a humiliation tour. Yeah, this is terrible.
I have to say, a lot of these lawyers file shipwrecked, and they get shipwrecked as a lawyer, and it's garbage. And the truth is, there is no collateral estoppel here. What is the finding that the bond court hearing made?
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. I got a question. If someone does something illegal, is that just or unjust?
It's sometimes unjust, sometimes just. It depends.
If someone does something illegal, should they always be held under? No. Okay, so we agree that the real question here is not whether it's just or unjust, whether we think the penalty should be severe or not.
No. So I agree. Not all illegal things are unjust. I'm asking, in this case, is this illegal action by the Trump administration just or unjust? And you said it was just for the Trump administration to do an illegal deportation.
Now,
And I'm going to ask you why. I'm going to ask you why.
Right, let me answer that. So the first thing I got to say is you keep loading this as though illegal is the pretext by which something would be just or unjust, which is why I asked you, is if something is illegal, is it just or unjust?
It can be. It depends.
Then you don't need to say, am I okay? Why am I okay with Trump doing something illegal? The question is,
Well, the fact that it was illegal lends to the unjustness of it. So if we were to say that this deportation in isolation was not unjust, but it opens the door to more unjust deportations with more like fake legal justification by precedents. Like, we deported this person and then said that we couldn't get him back, so now we can remove every person, and as long as we do it quick enough and as long as they're out of the country quick enough, then we can throw our hands up and say there's nothing that we can do. That sets a precedent that is unjust, and that means that this deportation was more unjust than just being illegal. It sets a way bigger precedent. So like the legality of this could play into its justness or unjustness. That's why I think Pisco is bringing this up, and I think that's a good thing to bring up. That we don't want to set the precedents that the president can ignore withholding orders, that we don't want to set the precedents that he can ignore district court orders, that he can ignore Supreme Court orders. Yeah, this is the legal question here needs to be explored for sure, and especially if you brought 2 lawyers on to talk about it. I don't know why you're trying to pull this away from the legal argument already.
Because I think as a standard, right, there's a threshold here that in the main, when the government does something illegal, we're going to presume it's unjust unless you can reach some threshold. Well, think about it, right? So if this can't just be a game of we let the government do whatever we want to people we don't like. We're fearful of the government wielding power in the main because of structural reasons. There's a reason. There's a reason. For example, you believe that someone who's accused, for example, of should be given a trial, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why is it that? Why do you think that someone who's so horrific, and if everyone agrees that this person, why should we give them a trial?
An American citizen gets a trial.
What about an illegal alien?
They don't.
So you don't think? So just be clear.
It's just not true. The 14th Amendment?
You don't think that crimes that are committed in this country by illegal immigrants, that they should have trials for those crimes? The penalty?
No, they do have. Wait. So to be honest, we do have trials for.
So the penalty for an illegal immigrant typically is for most who cross within 2 years is expedited removal. That means their due process is an immigration officer will determine whether or not they're here legally or illegally.
That's not what we're talking about crimes. We're talking about crimes.
And yeah, so when we get someone here who like or murder somebody, why are we going to spend taxpayer dollars when the outcome is going to be you get sent out of the country?
Well, Tim, so actually, a lot of times, we deal with this. We want them to be prosecuted.
I'm pretty sure criminal prosecutions of illegal immigrants can still happen, even if it just ends up in a deportation. I'm pretty sure we still criminally try illegal immigrants. I'm pretty sure that that's true.
They face a punishment instead of getting deported. So that is, we actually spend a lot of taxpayer resources on prosecuting illegal immigrants, at least in Texas.
But like, I just want to dwell here for a second. The Constitution says that persons in this country get trials if they are accused of a crime before they're punished. No, it does not say that. You can read the Constitution.
Let's clarify the fact. Does it say citizens or persons?
So for example,
Let me ask you this though: in the case of Abrego Garcia, do you think that is a sweeping policy that's being used to deport mass amount of people, or is this
what is a sweeping policy?
Well, I'm just saying the pretext that we use to deport Abrego Garcia. I'm saying, do you think that is being used right now to deport a massive amount of people, or is this an isolated incident in your opinion?
I don't think
Well,
it's
the
isolated.
problem is that we don't know the pretext under which Abrego Garcia was deported because he wasn't legally deported. There is no statute that allows this. There is no like precedence that allows this. The deportation was patently illegal. If you're asking if we've seen more patently illegal deportations thus far, then we'd have to let that play out in courts. But like, there's no precedence for this kind of deportation anyway. So it's a bad question.
I don't think it's relevant to the question presented, which has to do with
Kind of.
I will answer it.
I'm just saying, a few, when you make an omelet, a few eggs are going to get, cracked. I'm just saying there are going to. It sucks. How
Just bite the bullet and say yes, it was unjust. Of course, it was unjust. We don't want the government in the main unless there's exceedingly like crazy circumstances to violate the Constitution, right?
Pisco, real quick, but do you think it's going to be used in a massive way?
It already is. It already is.
But who else? What are examples we have? I know you talk about a cancer girl, but they actually were allowed to stay. So when leftists say that they were forced to leave, they chose to go with their family. They were 100% allowed to stay in America. So we didn't deport a cancer person.
If you guys are stuck in your echo chambers, and again, I think that there's some of that going on here.
Insult the audience like that.
So
Give me a break.
if it's that case, then you wouldn't know, for example, that this U.S. citizen, there's a parent here. There's an opportunity that people have basic due process rights to see if, like, I don't know, an aunt wants to care for the U.S. citizen, or another parent has parental rights and the right to have custody over the parent or a child.
In the instance you're referring to, the mother requested the child.
So I don't know which case. There are multiple cases of U.S.
There's
citizen.
two.
One of which the mother denies that's what the outcome that she wanted. But regardless, just the policy that we're talking about is with respect to people who are not citizens here. And you ask if it's like a mass policy. They're already by the Supreme Court again unanimously saying that these people are entitled to due process. You guys don't think that. You guys don't think that there should be due process.
I don't think that's
Everyone thinks they're entitled to due process. The question of what process is due, and it's extraordinarily.
That's not true. The person that Tim Pool literally just said that they don't deserve a trial. That's not true.
Limited in the context.
But Tim just said even in the context of criminal. So Tim just said.
I mean, even the sorry, I'm gonna pause this a fuck ton. Even in the case of like the Alien Enemies Act, which super expedites the due process, the Trump administration wasn't even complying with that. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia's due process rights had seen its day in court, and the final outcome of his due process was a withholding order that the Trump administration violated. So to act like he got his due process rights, even though the due process found that he was allowed to stay in the country, and we gave him a withholding order and an order to allow him to work, and then we deported him anyway. That's not adhering to the due process that we provided him.
Tim just said, in the context of a criminal indictment, that there should not be trials for people who are here illegally. You don't agree with that?
No, I don't.
See, hold on. This is a really good example for media literacy. What he did is he is falsely framing the arguments, redirecting it. What I'm saying is, there is no trial required for a crime committed by an illegal immigrant because they'll get an expedited removal before trial can take
You're
place.
conflating an immigration hearing, which is civil, and I agree. There's no. So you guys don't get confused, all right? I'm gonna teach you something.
I'm not conflating anything.
Immigration law and a removal proceeding is not a criminal matter. Okay, that's different than the criminal proceeding. Yes, I agree. You don't need trials, but JD Vance is full of shit.
You are
trials.
I gotta stop you. You are actually making a mistake. I am aware you are asking for a criminal trial for, let's say, an illegal immigrant who committed a murder. I am arguing that we will deport that person back to their home country, and then we're not going to hold a trial for him after the fact.
So you wait. So you're going to take a murderer who committed a crime in this country. You're not going to subject them to punishment in this country, and you're going to send the murderer back to El Salvador just so he can cross the border again and murder someone.
Well, that's why Trump has CCOT custody.
Hang on, that wasn't embedded in your hypothetical there that he would go to CCOT.
You presented information to the argument that was not previously included in it.
Which was
the
what?
argument is an illegal immigrant here gets deported first.
Before he goes to trial for murder? Come on, guys.
How do you have a criminal trial for someone who's not in the country?
So we do. This is high priority for our government to spend money on trials protecting U.S. citizens, and it's one of our common things.
Actually, hold on. Let me give a hypothetical to Tim, real quick though. Tim, this is where I think you're wrong. I'm sorry. So
you should ask. You should ask. Okay, we shouldn't try illegal immigrants in criminal court. Do you think that we should have let Laken Riley's killer just walk? Do you think we should have let Lake and Riley's killer walk and just send him to El Salvador to potentially let him cross over the border again? Like, these people are illegal immigrants. Obviously, they have no reservations crossing the border. Why wouldn't we have a criminal trial? You guys all supported the criminal trial of Lake and Riley's killer. So why is it any different for any other illegal immigrant?
You have rather had Laken Riley's murderer just deported, or are you happy
Alex
that they had a trial and got
Stein,
convicted?
holy, thank you so much. All right, never mind. When I said that, when I called you like a dumb fuck that would just divert, I'm sorry. I'm seeking forgiveness.
That's crazy. So you trust this El Salvadorian guy?
Yeah.
Dude, wait. Just be clear. You trust El Salvador to keep this guy in jail? This guy committed a crime on U.S. soil, and you trust El Salvador? You trust El Salvador? Yeah. Here's the problem. What happens if Bukele decides this guy goes free? What happens if they overthrow Bukele?
I got it, guys. I figured it out. We secure our border.
So in this country, there's justice for crimes.
I have a feeling that secure our border means shut it down and don't let anybody in, which is a little wild.
What you're talking about is injustice. It's for the purposes of expediting something, but it's not true justice. For example,
I actually disagree with you. I think what you're saying isn't justice, because what you are doing is creating a defense for people who had no right to be here in the first place, so that taxpayers have to spend money on someone who's not going to be here after this. And if you look at the case of Abrego Garcia, this guy, what was the due process that was failed? He was supposed to get what's called a USCIS official interview.
False.
To make it, this is under the law. This is actually
You're
not
wrong.
The law. It's in the law.
8 CFR.
on my phone on me.
So 8 CFR
The withholding of
24
deportation
sub
law
08.
states that if an individual receives a USCIS interview that determines the circumstances of their home country has changed, they can be deported. Withholding is void.
8 CFR 224, look it up. So you go to sub F on that statute, or it's a regulation. It is not the province of USCIS to determine whether someone's going to be,
You have to go back to the immigration judge.
Yeah, you have to go to IJ judge. You have to go to immigration judge.
No.
It would be
Pull up the
immaterial.
law on withholding of deportation, which explicitly states that a USCIS interview can determine that the circumstances of their home country has changed. I don't have my phone on me.
That's affirmatively.
But they don't have any enforcement way to do that. You have to bring that to the judge in order for the withholding order to be lifted. You can't just do it on the grounds that an interview took place.
We're talking, so this is the problem. This is defensive relief. And so in the immigration context, you can apply affirmatively to USCIS,
Right.
or you can put before an EOIR
Then I'll say
judge.
this. I concede. Let's bring him back, and the first thing that happens when he walks in the door, we turn
So
him
I
back
just want to
on.
make sure. You can see that it was unjust.
Yes. I love that Timple said that. Yes, you can bring him back and then deport him again. The problem is that you need to go through the process by which we get rid of illegal immigrants. That's the idea. Obviously, this shouldn't need to be said. If you want to bring him back and then go through the legal procedures to remove him, go for it. I don't think I would disagree with that. I don't think Pisco would disagree with that. Pisco might say he deserves like some sort of restitution, maybe, but I don't think anybody would meaningfully disagree with the idea of bringing him back, going through the legal procedures by which you deport him, and then deporting him. The problem is that you saw the legal procedures by which we deport him. You said, fuck those, this guy sucks, so we're gonna ignore those legal procedures anyway. That's the whole problem, okay? If you want to bring him back and go through the procedures, then there would be no issue.
Then it should be brought back and then put in removal.
No. Stop playing
That's what you
games.
just said.
Stop playing games. I am saying, for the sake of arguments, I will no contest your argument and say the end
That's
result.
pussy shit. Don't no contest an argument.
That's-
Actually,
that's-
take the
that's
argument.
fair. I think it's fair.
That's you engaging in semantics to change the
That's
arguments I make.
pussy shit. Why don't you actually engage with the argument? Why don't you actually engage with the argument and not say, oh, I don't know, because I'm fucking backed into a corner. Now I'm just going to say, I don't really care.
True.
What this guy does is he plays semantic games with the ideas being presented so that he can try and finagle out of when he's backed into a corner.
This isn't a semantic game. Pisco's been incredibly consistent in holding this answer. Was it illegal? And you guys keep trying to go off to, it was unjust, this is how we could remedy it, this is what we could do, but that's not answering the question of, was this deportation illegal? And that's the only question that Pisco's trying to get a concession on right now.
So how am I backed in? So I understand the proposition to be, is deportation unjust? I understand the proposition.
The end result of Abrego Garcia's return to this country is immediate expedited removal.
So
What the fuck is the point?
So I
Waste
heard
our
you.
fucking time.
So I just want to be clear. I understood the proposition. I listened very carefully. Said, is it just and should it be brought back? And you just said, okay, I guess it should be. It wasn't just. It should be brought back.
True. That's so true. Thank you, Pisco.
The point is, it's called a moot point when you're
the debate
arguing something
proposition is a
that's
moot point?
immaterial to the end result of what we're
The
trying to
debate
accomplish.
proposition is a moot point. I just want to hear you say
You're
that.
playing
Tim,
semantic
Tim,
games
okay.
again.
We're
You're playing
not.
semantic games
I
again.
also heard everyone else said this was debate. I'm the arena debate. You guys are coping. You know
We are
bite
debating.
the bullet. Bite the bullet.
Can I say something? Can I say
Let's
something?
get
I supposedly am debating here, right? I don't even remember that was supposed to happen. So the resolution was
All right, let
supposed
him talk, let him talk.
The resolution was supposed to be, is the deportation profoundly unjust, right? And there's a reason for that adverb, right? It's because
Wait, was that the... This feels like a huge goalpost shift. Did he say profoundly unjust? I don't remember hearing that at all. I thought I heard, was the deportation unjust? If you want to walk back now from was it unjust to was it super unjust, And then once we prove it's super unjust, then are you going to say, well, was it super mega unjust? Like, yeah, you could probably win the argument, but that's shifting the goalpost. If you want to concede that the deportation was unjust and that we should facilitate his return according to the Supreme Court order, then okay, what are we even here to argue about? Like, W. Pisco for getting a concession in 20 minutes? I had to plug my phone in.
There is a mild injustice that happens whenever the law is not followed, right? So, unless there is like some dramatic reason to not follow the law in a particular instance, there's usually a mild injustice. I think that the more interesting, and the funny thing is the Trump administration has conceded to this since the beginning of the filings, right? The Trump administration conceded from the outset that this was administrative error, that they should have gotten the withholding removal lifted before they removed him.
All right. So I'm glad that this dude can concede that. Now I want this dude to actually make sure that, I think Alex Stein conceded this too. Can we make sure that, this guy and Alex Stein and Pisco all hold Tim Pool and his audience of fucking idiots to this conclusion that it was an illegal deportation because they still want to fight on that claim? Why are you meeting him three-fourths of the way there when Tim Pool can't even get a 32nd of the way there? The video title is Debating Trump's Deportation of Illegal Aliens, the Culture War Live Debate.
Salvador. I don't think that's the most interesting question because it's a question that like even the Trump administration agrees to for the most part.
But Tim Pool doesn't, and it's his show. Why aren't we holding people to, why are we making concessions to ultimately agree with people? Why are we saying like, yeah, I don't think it's a super meaningful question of if the Trump administration is ignoring the Supreme Court. I don't really care about that. Was it based for him to do it? It's like, why are we making this concession before we've even, like, why are they walking off this point 20 minutes into the fucking video?
I think the question is this a profound injustice? And I think the answer to that is obviously no, for the reasons I laid out at the beginning, right? I think I'd like to actually hear your argument for why this is a profound injustice and not merely a mild.
And I want to make one little point though, Pisco. When it comes to Abrego Garcia, and I personally think this is an isolated incident, but even if you are right, I'll concede that I think, I ideologically, even though you and I are different on this subject, I do feel like that he didn't get his, due process. But, and I had to debate this on college campuses, it is hard. But in this instance with Abrego Garcia,
he did get his due process rights, to be clear. It's just they weren't followed. They actually litigated all of this, and then they ignored the ruling from it, so.
I think it's isolated, and I don't.
Abrego, just or unjust, and should the Trump administration bring him back? Yeah, so Pisco got the big dub right at the beginning. Huge Pisco W. Immediate victory. Wow. Impressive.
I don't think that it's a massive problem. That's what I think about this. But I do concede.
They go and find this question. It's like, who really cares, right? Who really cares? One guy, whatever.
Well, it's kind of like you're George Floyd. They're making this guy to be like a hero, and it's one incident, and it's bad, but he's not a hero, and he still, beat his wife. So it just kind of sucks that even though you are right in this instance, I don't want to be like a left.
And you can make the same argument for George Floyd, that, like, you can say that this dude was a piece of shit, and we could even probably agree on that. But the problem is the precedence that it sets. Like, if the Trump administration can just ignore the Supreme Court and keep this guy out, even though they admitted that the deportation was illegal, and even though the Supreme Court ruled that they must facilitate his return, and the district court ruled that they have to give an update on what steps they're taking to facilitate, and Trump is basically saying, oh, well, did you know he was an MS-13 member? And that's the steps that they're taking to facilitate. That sets a fucking god-awful precedent for the executive's relationship to the judicial. In the same way that, like, setting the precedent that this cop can just fucking kneel on the neck of some dude for, what was it, 3 minutes or some shit like that, some crazy amount of time, and then just, like, walk free, or like, not get anything for it at all. It's somebody who I think also had multiple prior problems with enforcement. The problem isn't necessarily like that we lost this perfect angel who could never do anything wrong. The problem is that this is a really unhealthy relationship with people in power to the people who check them. It's a really unhealthy relationship from the police to the people that they're upholding to protect. It's a really unhealthy relationship for the president and the Constitution that they're taking an oath to uphold.
Say that the means, the ends justify the means, and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to break the law to get the outcome that we want.
So I'm going to give you a hot take. This is worse than the George Floyd situation. This is worse than the George Floyd situation, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, wow. Yeah, ones in the chat. Ones in the chat.
I don't know from what perspective that would possibly be right. Like, it doesn't matter how you come down on George Floyd. The valence of George Floyd is bigger on either side.
So I understand. So I take the assumption.
Let him talk. Let him talk, guys.
And I do believe that George Floyd was murdered. I watched that entire trial. I think it's clear that they're.
No, okay, go ahead. But let's let him say.
Yeah, no, you should listen to the pulmonary cardiologist, his testimony. Yeah.
Let him talk. Let him talk. Let's hear this. He's about to make a good point. So I'm interested in this.
So this is why I do think that even though there's a history of cop violence, not just on black people, on people of all races, whatever, and it's a problem in the United States. I think that it doesn't present the same kind of civilizational problems presented by what the Trump administration is doing here. What they're trying to do here is put people outside of the contours of U.S. law. We have prisons in the United States. We have prisons in the United States for the worst of the worst. We spend money on it. The reason why we need to send them to Sicat or to El Salvador is quite simply because Trump doesn't want to be hemmed in by the law. And that when the president of the United States, when the strongest person in the country is saying things like, for example, I want to do this to U.S. criminals. I want to use it for U.S. citizens. I believe him. I believe that he wants to do that.
How about this, Pisco? You and I both know Guantanamo Bay. There are people that are being held there without due process. We're not losing sleep over that. I don't see the left. And that was done by Obama, kept that when he said he campaigned, I'm going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. Yet he still said he was wrong.
Derek Chauvin did nothing wrong, and he is held unjustly.
That's wrong. That's wrong. But let's. I want to ask you guys, if Trump sends U.S. citizens abroad to Sicat, you have a problem with that, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't know about that. As a different form instead of using a U.S. prison?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's any different than our private prison industry that's a scam. So to send them to a prison.
This is the danger.
Yeah. So
this is the danger. Trump is selling. Trump is testing.
And we got 2 minutes left, and then
Pisco should stop stuttering because of the people in the audience. I understand that that's really hard to do, but it's you're giving them too much power.
we're about to get into the debate. So
Trump is testing this theory, and he's telling you in advance he wants to apply it to U.S. citizens. And just like Obama, one of the things I respect about Tim Pool is he's aware of the kinds of violations that occurred under Rumsfeld, under the neocons, under Barack Obama, under Trump Term 1, and that very same rationale that applied to Guantanamo Bay, that applied to the deprivations of due process in Abu Ghraib, surely that applies to Trump version 2. And I don't see a kind of exceptional circumstance in this case that would justify breaking the law.
Well, before we go to the members, Will, do you want to take the last one?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so I think the argument that this is ultimately going to lead to U.S. citizens deportation is just a really bad slippery slope argument. I don't think that's true. I think that there's so many other remedies that are available.
Why don't you think that's true when Donald Trump has literally said it? He's literally said, deport the homegrowns. He's literally asking Bukele on a hot mic to set up more prisons so they could deport homegrowns. What was it? He said, literally, we need more prisons so we could deal with the homegrowns. Almost that explicitly. How is that a bad slippery slope argument when Trump has conceded 90% of it other than just doing it?
To U.S. citizens that it's not going to happen. I think that
and when most of the audience and I'm sure Tim Pool probably says that that's based that we could deport U.S. citizens, that would be a fine thing to do.
You want to send U.S. citizens to Sicat? Who decides? Who decides? That's the question. Do we just trust Trump and his, Kash Patel to say who the terrorists are?
Yes. With any sort of prison, I mean, there's levels of crime or decide.
But there's also levels of review, right? So
there is levels of review.
One of the reasons why Tim, I think, in good faith, is against the death penalty is he understands the propensity for courts, yes, even courts with full review, to get shit wrong sometimes. In this case, I think that you should be fearful of a purely executive discretion on who is a terrorist sufficient to make a big hole in due process.
See, and here's where I want to make one last point, right? And this is why I think the slippery slope argument is bad. It'd be one thing if the Trump administration was hiding that it had made this administrative error from the beginning, but from the outset, from the very first filing in court, from the first declaration, the Trump administration was like, we made a mistake.
And what happened? What happened to the judge that made that concession? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what happened to the judge or the lawyer that made that concession that it was administrative error? Do you know if he's still working for the Trump administration or if he's still being paid by the Trump administration? Does anybody know that? Because I'm pretty sure that the lawyer that conceded that the deportation was an administrative error literally got fired by the Trump administration for that concession. So, my ass that they're engaging in good faith here. That's just such horseshit.
It was an administrative error. He should have had his withholding removal lifted. So, he didn't fire the guy who made the declaration, right? He made the, fired the attorney.
They suspended the guy who admitted it, and
they suspended the attorney.
Thank you.
Stephen Miller is saying it was a mistake. Stephen Miller's lying about the Supreme Court decision, and you agree that Trump could get him back if he wanted to.
I mean, I think he could. I just don't. I think it's beyond the judicial power to order.
Whether it's beyond the judicial power to order, since you said it was unjust, why wouldn't you want him to right the wrong that you acknowledge?
Here's how I would have him do that, right? And one of two ways: either a Zoom hearing or a hearing in the American Embassy in San Salvador, right? You resolve the problem. You resolve the problem by just having the hearing to lift the withholding of removal.
But the Supreme Court said facilitate his release in custody in El Salvador.
Yeah, they said that, and it's and I think they're acting on a rush basis. People, they haven't been very clear about what they mean by facilitate, and neither is Judge Dennis, frankly. So I think the solution here is, whatever, while they're litigating what exactly facilitate means in this context, you just go ahead and handle the withholding of removal issue. He's going to lose on it.
And he's not, first of all, I just want to address it real quick, because I want to address the issues of collateral estoppel and the issues in issue preclusion. That's a legal term of art, but for the lawyers who are eventually going to watch this, the bond hearing is only related to the issue of whether or not he's in the moment a danger to the community. It's not a finding of the court that is able to apply, and have binding precedent on any other determination. Furthermore, the basic contours of due process and collateral estoppel require there to be, vigorous process where the issues were really held. They didn't have the opportunity to cross-examine any of the witnesses. An anonymous witness on two forms, one of which is like blatantly wrong and contradictory, so they picked him up for murder. And so the issue of collateral estoppel, there's no collateral estoppel.
I mean, I think in the context of an immigration proceeding, I think it would.
I would love to. Maybe we could. Maybe this is the thing that I could finally talk to Pisco about. I would love to know what the merit is technically of like the MS-13 claims, because I've been conceding that a lot, and if it's true that like this bond hearing isn't actually like doesn't set legal precedents or like can't be used as precedents in future cases, then that would be a super interesting thing to know. Especially since I'm ready. Maybe I could reach out to him. Who knows? Maybe.
You can't suddenly take a criminal standard.
Okay, that's 30 minutes, but we'll let you wrap
Thank you,
it
guys.
up.
So, and then just the second issue withholding. It's clear under the regulations and under the due process clause, you are allowed to bring up, if just as the burden of the person going to be on the government to show that the country conditions have changed, so that Barrio 18 is like no longer a threat because Bukele is just fucking Superman or whatever. He's going to have additional opportunities to argue other withholding arguments. One of which is now that he's been identified by Bukele by name, he has a very strong argument that he's going to be actually a target of persecution by Bukele and the administration of the state, which I think is actually a stronger argument than the Barrio 18 argument.
Let's roll.
All right, guys, now let's get it on. That was our introductory debate. You guys kind of got your palate, Well, now we need the palate cleanse. You got your little taste of what tonight's going to be about. So, guys, what's going to happen is we're going to pick people up. We're going to kind of mix it up. So, first, we're going to start with Donnie Dossie. But, Donnie, what's going to
This should have been an hour and an hour. This first half hour was complete horseshit all around. It's just really stupid.
happen is you're going to come up here. You're going to get a minute uninterrupted to talk about whatever prompt you want. We have this prompt. We're just going to use your because you're the first one. And then after you make that argument, then you're going to come up here, and that's when we're going to have the back and forth dialogue. So, you got 1 minute, and then, hopefully just give us your best 1 minute elevator pitch on your topic and why you think you're right. Then you get the 4 minutes back and forth. You get to freaking argue with the most
And
famous
if we like
guy
you, stay.
on,
If you suck,
on
I'll kick
YouTube.
you out.
If I suck, I suck.
And so your 1 minute starts. Let me get the timer out. So we
Just
can
go for it. He'll start it.
Yeah, ready, set, debate, or say your topic.
So this withholding of removal thing that I keep hearing about. Granted, I admit I'm not a lawyer or anything. I also, I didn't actually read the Supreme Court ruling or anything. But my understanding of the withholding of removal is this makes it illegal for them to have deported Garcia to El Salvador. It did not grant him permanent residency within the United States, and it also did not outlaw ability to deport him to another country. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of confused on where the confusion. Okay, I get it. A mistake was made. He was accidentally deported to El Salvador. So what happens from that point? We go ahead and we bring him back. How do we bring him back? What if Bukele isn't willing to relinquish him to us? How do we go about getting him back? Are we supposed to send him to the military and go take him by force and bring him back here just so that way we can detain him and deport him again anyways? None of that makes sense to me. Yeah! That's kind of my point.
All right,
Well, come on up, and then we can tell you why you're wrong.
I mean, that's my position too, mostly. So nice to meet you.
Well, let's roll. I mean, what was
Sure.
wrong?
Happy. First of all, thank you guys. I know that we disagree on stuff. I really appreciate y'all coming here. I think it's a really important topic, due process, and I think it's awesome.
If I could say real quick.
Give me 1 second. I gotta.
Kudos to you, man. Big balls. Come up here, go up against these three, and an entire fucking room of people that are opposing you. That's strong.
Okay, you don't need to kiss his ass. Let's go.
So I think the first, I'm going to deal in reverse order. The first thing is well, how can we actually get that done? I think everyone, if they're being honest with themselves, because you guys are honest people, should admit that Trump could, if he wanted to, get Kilmar back. He recently, as this week, said he could get him back. So we believe in terms of practicality, the president of the United States could get him back, right?
I mean, I concede he could because he does have a lot of sway, and Bukele.
So you agree with that, right?
He wants to work with him, but then at the same time, this also keeps Bukele in the spotlight.
Yeah, I know.
He likes being in the spotlight.
But let's not talk about questions of could. Let's talk about questions of should, because I don't really think that you can make a strong argument that he couldn't.
I don't really think
Actually-
that he needs to waste his time on it.
Well, hang on, I just want to give Will an opportunity.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think my point is that there's Article 2 prerogatives that he actually does need to protect. And so in a world where Article 3 is sort of in this vague game of trying to order him to return him,
This is
I
a
would
good point.
say no.
So I want to give Will his credit because it is the case. There are, as the Supreme Court held, limits, Article 3 limits on their ability to infringe on the Article 2 prerogatives. And I agree with some of these. If the Supreme Court said to Trump, hey, you have to go send in spec ops to take this guy out, I would think that that's unconstitutional for them to order that. So I do agree that there are some limits here. But that's a question of whether the court can order the remedy, not a question about what Trump could do.
Well, no, because there's an odd element to this too, and I think that you're alighting. The odd argument is that in a world where the Supreme Court is attempting to encroach on his power with vague orders, and Trump accedes to it, that sets a precedent for what the court can do going forward. And so, I mean, and since we're in this area of core Article 2 power, why I think I think Trump should do, as I said, I think the remedy here is this hearing in El Salvador. But I think Trump should resist any sort of attempt to say, oh, you're ordering me to negotiate with the Salvadoran government to bring him back. I'm not going to do that until you give that up.
We also need to address what it means to what the phrase "could bring him back" means, and this would mean that Trump would need to negotiate with Bukele to some degree. And I also believe it's fair to say that while Trump could bring him back, the resistance is going to be tremendous. Bukele is going to have to concede to his nation. I have released an MS-13 gang member because I was pressured by a foreign country.
Right,
so
correct.
Trump could get it back,
Absolutely.
but Trump's going to have to come in like,
We can't
here's
do
what
that.
we'll give you. We'll give you this. We'll give you that. Things that the Supreme Court can't order him to guarantee.
Bukele has like what 90% approval in El Salvador. I've had a client from El Salvador before. I don't want to underplay the
Because
problem
he's
of
hard
gang.
on them.
What's that?
Because he's hard on crime. He's hard on gang.
So I want to be clear. Like my client that I once had, he was absolutely a victim to the gang violence. It was endemic. And it was just unlivable in El Salvador. So I don't want to underplay the degree to which gang violence matters. It absolutely does. But he is not. His approval rating, is to the max. The notion that he would face some kind of humongous.
And the very second that he softens on that, his approval rating is going to go down.
You don't think he's like, okay, we give it back because we want to make a relation with the president? That's not going to affect his approval rating. Come on, this is all a joke. If Trump wanted him back,
So I want to do some Socratic dialogue
Yeah,
with
go
you
for it,
because you did a lot
Yes, I
earlier.
did, yes.
So let's do some Socratic dialogue. Imagine a different hypothetical. Let's imagine a world where the United States had an illegal member of La Cosa Nostra in detention.
Yep.
And somehow he had managed to acquire withholding removal from an immigration judge. Maybe that information got hidden about him being in La Cosa Nostra, whatever. Okay, got a withholding removal to Italy.
So like Italy.
Okay, the Italy hypothetical. And then,
That's 4 minutes. Donnie, dude,
Let's.
you
Any final thoughts before
yeah,
we
but
go?
Donnie, you spent a minute of it kissing Pisco's ass.
I shouldn't be kissing his ass. I was just trying to talk about, I'm impressed that he got up here, but at the
I
same time,
respect it.
he's fucking
Well,
wrong.
we're impressed
all
that
around.
you're here,
That's
too.
where I'm at.
But I do agree. I do tremendously respect you being here, man. This is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we do appreciate it. Okay, now, guys, obviously, no, thank you, Donnie. Great job. And so, guys, you're going to be able to come up here. So try to interject a little bit. I know, Donnie, it's tough being the first one, so don't beat yourself up. You actually did a good job. Thank you. You're the virgin. We just, you took our virginity. So thank you. So, well, Alex Jones, we're about to get into Alex Jones, but it's funny because we're getting heckled by. Let's be real, guys. This is a sausage fest. I mean, it is. But we do have a few ladies here. So next up, I want one of those beautiful ladies from the audience to come on down. So do we have a lady that wants to come up here? Do we have a lady? Yeah, come on. Come on. Yes, come on. Get up there. You have to come up. Yeah. If you're here, guys, you're susceptible to being chosen and get up there. So just say anything. Just come up for a minute. If you suffer the minute, you get kicked off. You don't have a choice. Just come up here. Don't be scared. You're going to go viral. You got Tim Pool.
Let's try.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, if you're gonna be a chicken, Bach. Look, listen. You came here. You put on that dress. You wanted to be seen. Let's see it.
Let's grab who we got.
All right. So let's go with somebody that's different. Is John Gordon here? We got a John Gordon in the audience. No. Okay.
He wanted to be here.
What about Connor York? Do we have a Connor York in the audience? All right. No. What about a Sam Lipton? Do we have Sam Lipton in the audience? None of that. Is there anybody that's liberal or has a different viewpoint than us that wants to come up here?
Well, it's different, but it's
Okay, well then you come up here. What's your name?
Stork is what people call it.
Stork. Okay. Did you submit? Did you do an official submission? Okay, I'll find it. So
Well, go for it.
you got your
let
1 minute.
him deal with the timer and let's see what you got.
Yeah, if I can get it in before he gets the timer going. Okay, so I believe he is slightly wrong. I believe you are mostly correct. And I believe all of this is a fact that they denied him his Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial when he was denied essentially all of the processing that would have been needed when he had the stay of deportation. So he should have been sent to another place. In addition to that, most of immigration is actually screwed up because we have not filed a writ of mandamus against the federal government for not processing all of these people who are stuck in immigration limbo for 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And they should be doing their job and getting them the hell out of the country.
I think
Come on down. Take a seat.
Come on down.
I mean, yeah, I
take a
don't.
seat.
Sixth Amendment doesn't apply. It's not
I don't think the Sixth Amendment applies.
So it's not a Sixth Amendment issue.
Because it's a civil matter.
And you can't get rid of mandamus. Number one is these judges are executive branch officials. So
You can get a federal writ of
you sure
mandamus.
can't get rid of a mandamus against executive branch officials. But right now they're all under Trump. And so if
Yes.
Trump could just order them to do whatever you want the writ of mandamus to do,
That's democracy.
Yeah, but so all I mean to say is I think that this is properly understood as a due process issue.
If the writ of mandamus was actually filed under the previous administration, then they would be obligated to do what it is they need to do.
That sounds like it's the Article 3 judges encroaching on the executive branch prerogatives.
Yeah, I think it actually, and in this context, it probably would be because we actually, this is, I agree. Yeah, there's an Article 3
Holy
prerogative
fuck.
to manage immigration and enforce immigration laws. You can fail to enforce to such a degree
All right. Okay.
that it would be mandamusable by somebody, but then there's all sorts of other
I
questions.
want to cut a deal real quick with Democrats. I will advocate for the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia to this country for his hearing if we also simultaneously get a hearing on the extrajudicial assassinations Barack Obama committed.
Wait, let's talk about that.
The same thing actually.
So-
the writ of mandamus for.
So let's talk about that because
sorry.
you might think, and I understand this point. First of all, he was a U.S. citizen, right? That's number one, and he was killed. Al-Awlaki, right? Is that what you're talking about?
So Anwar al-Awlaki is a great example, but Abdul Rahman is a better example.
Okay.
Abdul
Talk about that case.
Abdul Rahman is was a 16-year-old American citizen, was not a part of any terror organizations. The Obama administration ordered a drone strike on a civilian.
If he suspends habeas, then I don't know, man. That's pretty crazy. We gotta get Pentupple to talk about that now, because holy, wow, okay.
Cafe in Yemen, a country we're not at war with, blowing it up, killing a bunch of people, including him, and they've admitted to it.
Yep.
I would like, and I don't think you necessarily disagree with me. That's why I said Democrats. I'm not directing at you. I know that if I went to Democratic politicians and said, "You see that as an injustice," I believe that in the end the courts will prevail as it pertains to Abrego Garcia. So I'm willing to say, okay, let's spend that money, but you got to give me something.
Yeah,
let's have Justice Obama goes to prison.
The only reason that I would say that's a problem is I believe there's a statute of limitations on what it is you can file a writ of mandamus for. And
Is there a statute of limitations on murder?
I don't think there is in this case, but when you're talking about military actions or something like that, there may
But he's not talking about specific writ. He's just saying in general.
a writ of mandamus, you sue the government essentially for inaction, and that's what the problem is we have to.
But he's not talking about a particular remedy. He's saying, I'm willing to publicly support X in exchange for Democrats giving
Yeah,
them.
and so I will also concede there's probably, and you guys are lawyers probably know this better than me, some kind of immunity Obama has where he's going to say, this was a military strike with intelligence. We didn't intend to kill an American, but we did. So he may have some immunity from criminal prosecution.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to win a.
No, that's fine. I think you can still
this.
get wrongful death or something like that.
I mean,
He probably has like
the president has absolutely. I mean, you have like a civil suit against the government.
You could. They tried it.
Unfortunately, I don't know if he has any surviving family members left because they also killed them.
Indeed. No, but my argument in the long form is actually impeach him, convict him, and then now that he's no longer immune, you go through.
But the court has already, so in the Trump versus United States case, which I totally agree with.
Impeach
Hold on.
Obama?
Impeach him first.
Yeah.
Convict him in the impeachment.
Yeah.
Which he's no longer immune to the murder.
So the Supreme Court specifically rejected that impeachment judgment clause argument in Trump versus United States. So there's a couple arguments. So one was the inherent structure of the Constitution makes it that you have certain degrees of absolute immunity for core executive acts that are part of your core executive powers. But there was an argument additionally that Trump said that, well, I'm not immune under those theories, or alternatively, I'm immune until you impeach and remove me. That's under the impeachment judgment clause. But the Supreme Court unanimously held that that was not the case. So you don't need to impeach someone to trigger criminal immunity and remove them. That's been rejected. But it's a good question. Would I support a hearing that looks at the executive power and its use on U.S. citizens when they get killed? Absolutely.
All right, that's 4 minutes. So Stork, thank you. Anything you want to say before you go? All right, give it up for Stork. Now, guys, when you come up, you got 1 minute. Make sure to get on the mic. Okay, now this next guy.
Why don't we just have him, if we don't know, like some people didn't show up, why don't we have them raise their hands and then see who is.
Okay. Well, I know this guy's here because this guy's insane. I love this guy. No, I want to call up David Tiny Flora. So David, come on down. Tiny, it's your turn. Come on down, Tiny.
Oh, he's coming.
Tiny, come on. Yeah, give it up for Tiny. He's not exactly that tiny. I'll tell you that much. The man's huge. He's built like a damn refrigerator. Look at him. Come in here, sir. Now get up on that mic. You know how to get up on things. Come on. We want to hear you. Maybe make it taller. Damn.
You can pick the mic up and take it with you.
Damn. All right, you got 1 minute.
on that thing for you, Alex. $20.
No, I'm not gay. I don't play that way. Maybe Pisco.
$20. Bro.
Yeah, well, I'm worth a lot more. I'm a pimp on a blend, dude. You know what I mean? I don't need $20. But let's. You got 1 minute. What do you want to say, Tony?
All right, so what I want to discuss, you guys actually touched on it briefly.
Sorry, just get closer to the
Hold
mic.
on,
Yeah.
hold on.
So what I wanted to discuss, and you guys actually talked about it or touched on it briefly, was actually the, I guess, sale of U.S. citizens to private prison industry in the United States, and how that would be any different than selling U.S. citizens to CCOT, for example. I believe that there's already a precedent that's set in the United States where we do pass or sell inmates along, from my personal knowledge working as a corrections officer for a few years, and I believe that it would be as simple as creating a territory or creating CCOT a territory within, creating a territory within CCOT.
I'm sorry, guys. I am no longer interested in this debate. I need to. My mind is somewhere else.